this lesson, I'd like to show you how I paint trees for Misty Forest Landscapes and give you some ideas for more tree shapes. So we're going to start with drawing the trees because I find that using a pencil is actually pretty similar to using a very thin paintbrush like this one. And this will actually help you practice without any rush or fear to ruin your background. So let's start with the shape that I like to use in my paintings. I just draw a vertical line like this. If you're getting started, you can start adding the main branches. So you want them to get longer and longer as you move towards the base of the tree. And when you have this, you can add a little more to it. So I really enjoy making my lines curvy like this. I find that it gives those trees a little bit more elegance, but that's just me. And you don't have to make it so perfect. You can add more or less branches on one side or the other. Doesn't really matter. Then you can even add other branches that are looking a little bit up, just for more realism. I wouldn't overdo it with this, but it just helps. So this is what a tree that I paint would look like. Now you can go for a tree that will look a little bit more realistic, a little bit more detailed. We're going to start with a vertical line once more. I'm going to go with small to longer branches again. And now we could add some baby. And then repeat by adding more branches. So clearly I'm not as comfortable with this shape than this one. That's something you can do. You can see it's quite different. And now if you're looking for something very easy to execute, or perhaps you don't have a convenient paintbrush to use for tree painting like this one's very thin and it makes it easy to paint very fine trees. You could just go for triangles, trace a vertical line once more. Draw a triangle from there. Leave it like that to make more of a stylized painting, or maybe why not add a few branches. And then paint the whole thing. So these are just 3 ways to do it, and I think that by practicing and painting more and more Misty landscapes, everyone will develop their own way of painting the trees. Now let's look at the actual technique to paint realistic trees with watercolor. And again, don't worry, we will get into this more in depth and practice while we paint the project together. But I think that this exercise will be helpful since it's a close-up. What you want to do is grab a thin paintbrush like this one, wet it. I'll come to a fine tip. Now you want to pick up some paint. And I'm just going to show you what happens when you just pick up the paint and start painting. So notice that even when I use the tip of my paintbrush, I end up with a very thick line. And if I start painting, there is so much water in my paintbrush that the paint tends to clump together. You can clearly see it here. I'm going to keep doing it that way. I added even more water in my paintbrush now. And you can see now how this is just a shape. We can see the branches, but nothing more. What you want to do instead is dip your paintbrush in the paint like we did before. And then you want to use your paper towel to soak up that excess of paint. I think this is key to paint realistic pine trees that look defined. So now let's trace a line like I did earlier, except that this time it's a lot thinner and I have a lot more control. And it's the same with the branches. And I can still use, I'll show you, I need more paint. I can still use the edge here to add more. But I have the option to get very fine lines from using just the tip. A lot more control, and we actually get to decide where we want definition. I think you're all set to start painting now, so I'll see you in the next lesson and we'll start mixing color to prepare for our painting.